Hello, welcome to Sema Ukweli. This is the first time I'm sitting on this chair. James Smart, karibu sana.
It's very uncomfortable. But let's do it.
Let's do this.
Let's do it.
Karibu sana. So, when you talk about Sema Ukweli, what is Sema Ukweli? As it says, say the truth. Sema Ukweli ni ongea ukweli. And the platform came about because I get a lot of calls and messages from strangers telling me, this happened to me, this happened to me. And then I realized that me sharing those stories as an individual is not enough. Mm-hmm. And so it came about with a couple of guys who said, let's do Sema Ukweli, where it's a platform where you can self-author your own story. So, you know, normally when you have a media house, the media house is like a conduit for your story. And so it's like a platform for your story. And so let's start a platform where we can focus on injustices. If you're a victim of a police brutality, illegal arrest, land grabbing, and you need a platform where your story can be shared, we listen to you. And because of doing that, this year alone, you have 6 lawsuits.
Good for you. You're starting very well. I think maybe you start from the beginning on why these sort of platforms are important. I think as a country, there's a failure, a systemic failure on something. So either our systems of police have failed, the way of getting justice, restorative justice has failed. As citizens, we have a lot of problems. If something wrong happens to you, you're unable to get that help from what is supposed to be there. And I suppose that's where it starts. It starts from there.
It starts from systematic failing institutions and the lack of faith in institutions. So someone gets robbed or something happens to them. Instead of them going to the police, they go to Twitter. So normally we tell Kenyans, whoever it is, wherever you are, if something happens to you, you go to the police to have a record of it. They may never do anything about it, but you record that. But it's true because I think ideally in a country where people pay taxes, when something happens to you, the institutions that have workers who are paid to give you that service or to serve you or to ensure that you get justice. But as we discussed earlier before we came to this show, we're talking about how if a crime happens in this country, a few seconds later it becomes a cold case. Because do you know that the Kenya police, the DCI, have a fingerprint section? Like they have people who go to college and they're training forensics and lifting fingerprints. But how many times have you had a court case where they say the conviction came because of fingerprints? How many times have you been robbed? Either your house was broken into, or a criminal came and touched any of your things, and the police came and lifted the fingerprints and told you, we have a match. Does it ever happen?
I have followed court cases for quite a while. I'm waiting for one case where these systemic investigations, police came in a crime scene, took pictures, laid down the crime scene as supposed to have, then do investigations and come back and say, we've run and we found a match. I'm yet to find one. If there's one, I'd really be happy to hear that.
The DCI boss tell us which case
that has happened.
That has happened.
Yeah, but I think to get to another point, I think the whole Anglo-leasing project
was about that.
Yes, was supposed to fix that because the problem of fingerprints across the country. So you have as many number of police stations as number of DCI officers, and that process of documentation and that sort of thing. So it makes it difficult.
Because everything is manual.
Everything is manual.
So the search, they do it manually lifting, and then they go search manually. So they have to go through thousands and thousands of files to get the match.
Exactly.
And knowing that Kenya police are very lazy, they need to be motivated to work. Motivation lazima itoke. They'll never do it.
Yeah. So that's problem number one. Yeah. Just how the incredible problematic how the police is done. And I think as much as crime gets into a way, I think another thing that Kenyans have learned how to live with is that these things, no one really cares. And I think that's where now sort of this cross-section of maybe after 2010 and before 2010, when people didn't have any other means, a way of saying, okay, I went to have a deal with someone, I was going to buy land, and here's my paperwork, and this person has not done the end of the bargain. You go to the police, nothing can happen, So after 2010, basically after social media, something happened.
And as to the new constitution, so we have the Ombudsman Office, we have IPOA, we have the Kenya National Human Rights Commission, which doesn't do a lot of work. We have many commissions actually formed for the people of Kenya to take complaints to. They don't do much, but it's important for you to go and take there. And then there's a small claims court, which means if you have a claim under $1 million shillings, you can sue someone. However, when that fails, what do you do? So the reason why Sema Ukweli actually exists is to ensure that duty bearers know about a story or a victim of an injustice, and using that platform will help you get your way to justice. One of the things that bad people fear is exposure. Because if you expose them, it becomes harder for them to con other people. And I feel that victims of crime should not be ashamed of sharing their story. There's a very bad habit in our country where you become a victim of anything. Maybe someone leaked your nudes or did something that was very unbecoming or very criminal. Instead of Kenyans focusing on the victim and saying how do you get them justice, they shame the victim. A good example is Chris Musando was murdered in 2017, like 2 months before the elections. Then there was a girl next to Chris Musando who was thrown there to murky the waters. Instead of guys seeing that Chris was murdered and his fingers cut off, they were saying, what is a married man doing with a single woman?
It's consistent. I think if you go back to as much history as possible, I like to call it the mystery woman. Everywhere there is sort of like murder or unexplained death, there's always
Jacob Juma.
Yes, there's a mystery woman somewhere, and it's a thing that we do. And you're right. I think it's about a society the way we are structured. We like to think we're very moral.
Are we not?
And therefore, I don't know. I think you're the one who says, that I think there's a difference between morality and ethics.
Yes. Very big one.
And I think you confuse the two things. Morals is,
it's personal.
What you do with your space, in your own personal space, that's moral. And it's something that you enforce in your house, enforce in your own code. That's morals, right?
What you do with the private parts.
Yes.
It's private and it's a moral thing.
It's a moral thing. Ethics is what happens with all of us in public spaces and things that we expect, So if I can't steal from you and just walk away and be like, yeah, that's fine. There's an ethical problem and also there's a law against it.
But
right?
Kenyans actually are more towards moralistic Quran Bible enforcement than ethical enforcement.
Yes, and that creates our first problem, our big problem.
Yes.
Where then now we are unable to solve big problems or public problems because our interpretation, our lenses is a moral lens.
Yes.
So the inability of us to say there's a crime here, and regardless of whatever this person was doing, this is a crime. And it's been dealt with. The morals will let him and his conscience and his God to deal with that thing. However, I think those two things have made it impossible for us to fix this.
Because you conflict them, most of them. So someone who is known as a land grabber or a murderer or a rapist will show up in church every other Sunday, worship and give an offering or build a church, and Kenyans are going to go ballistic and says he's God-fearing. But actually he's a criminal who is God-fearing, because even the devil fears God. You know that? even the devil quotes God. That doesn't mean the devil is a good person.
No.
That means that the devil knows that God exists.
No.
And the devil can quote the Bible. If you look at the Bible very well and you read the book of Matthew, or the Gospels rather, because it's in Matthew, it's in John. When Jesus went up to fast, guess who says, if you're the really son of God? It was the Bible was being quoted by the devil. The devil is a Bible quoting liar, like most of our politicians. But where were we?
So
you're saying shame.
Yes.
Do not be ashamed to share your story. One of the ways to demobilize or to take away the weaponization of shame is by owning your story. Because what people do in this country is that they rob you, then they make you feel like an idiot for robbing you. Now, if you rob me or do something harmful to me, I will not be ashamed to say that this person did this to me. And so Sema Ukweli is saying, here's your platform. Could you say Sema Ukweli?
You've been a victim of this, and you've shared many times of people who've robbed. I think the famous one was, is it the guy who you had to do Is it
A
a well?
borehole.
A borehole for you?
Yes, he's called Cliff Ofuko. He's now in court, and I hope he gets to go to jail. And there's other criminal matters. I have pursued him. I was conned. Was I foolish? Maybe I was. But just because he conned me, that doesn't mean that I won't share. Don't let anyone make you feel ashamed that you are a victim of a crime. Or don't let anyone shame you for aspiring for a better country. It's very, very important that we own our shame and we own our stories.
So that's the first thing, to own your story.
Yeah.
So that, and share it. And I think sharing it widely, because if we are unable to know that this is the consistent or the trend that is giving us, this kind of theft. If, say for instance, because theft goes into several stages. There's times when people are told there's this land that belongs in place X and Y, and all of you guys, with 10,000 shillings, you can own, I don't know how many acres, And then people just jump there. There's guys who show up with other schemes, you know, and say, I'll give you 2 rabbits, and then after a period of time, you can sell them for $1 million bob to these new places that are coming. So these trends happen all the time. And I think one of the way we are very susceptible to it is the fact that we are shame society. And you're like, I can't be the person who was robbed, not me. Yeah. So I'll go quietly, and then it's someone else's problem. And so we embolden the theft. We embolden this, the criminals essentially to get from one scheme, go to another one. Yeah, because it's essentially the same
and
people.
And they rebrand. Let's say all these schemes.
Yeah.
Those rebrand. I want to share a quick story about how you can take control of a narrative and a story. So a good example is that December holidays in 2014, kids go on holiday. And they go on holiday, they have a playground that they normally play. And then they go home during the December holidays. Someone decides to actually fence the school playground. And when the kids come back to school, the playground is occupied. And what the kids decided to do is reclaim back the playground. And they came loudly and said, "This is our playground," and they pushed down the wall. And there was a level of force that the kids used.
Yeah.
And they said, if we can't use our playground, the hotel that wants to steal our land cannot stand. And I think we need to ensure that we put the fear of God or loss to the guys who do us harm. I think man should be able to have the ability to do violence, even if it's in a non-violent way. That whoever is robbing you or taking advantage of you knows that there's always a fight back. Those kids fought back. And today, Langata Road Primary School has a playground because the kids fought back. They said, the man who wants to grab our land is powerful. He'll send police with dogs, tear gas, guns, and they'll come and batons to beat us up. But we'll try and shame the person to show that the truth is more powerful than lies and than a land grabber. And I think always, if you can, the truth is always powerful. Doesn't matter what the other side has. King Charles is coming to this country. And he thought he's going to come and get roses from the airport, and you're going to take him to treetops and where the mother sent him to become the queen. But he's going to come here and hear of a narrative where our forefathers were tortured and detained and murdered for this freedom that we have today. So there can't be one narrative. And so we need to ensure that we debunk the narrative our oppressors have all the time.
How do we, I think as a thinking about a question, how do we make sure that we lose that thing you call the fear? So that this becomes second nature, because having the society, the instruments that are supposed to safeguard, make sure that you don't lose your property, make sure that, if something bad's happened to you, there's recourse and that sort of thing. If that is lost, how do we not lose our fear?
How do we lose fear?
Yes. How do we lose fear?
How do we lose fear?
Yes, so that we come out and
you have to stop being polite. This
Explain
country is very civil. There's a lot of civility. So someone does you wrong, and you're civil and polite towards what they did to you, and you package it, and you feel like you're ashamed of sharing that story. So you have to be polite about it. Evil people, criminals, don't deserve your civility, and they don't deserve your politeness. So if someone does you harm, you have to say what they did to you. You have to mouth it. There's this shame of talking about what happened to you. And that's what I'm saying, you have to lose that politeness and that civility. Usimwaibishe, unajua kuna familia. That's the reason why you should actually let people know. Because kama kuna familia kana jua ni mwizi. Unajua mwambie wase ni kweli, unajua hii story yako na familia. More reasons why you should actually do that, because there's a, we're the only country in the world, one of the few countries in the world where the worst of the worst has risen to the top. Because we've never spoke about it. I remember that someone who was running for office, and I met one of his former colleagues, and they're saying this guy was bad. During Kano days, this guy did things. We used to, like, the things we're being told have been there, but they were never voiced. And I need to go back to what my grandmother used to do. So my grandmother was a brilliant woman, very smart woman. And my grandmother's former advice was, don't go to that house, they practice witchcraft. And I never went to that house. Now imagine if all of us were told about that particular house, that witch would never become president, or deputy president, or governor, or minister, or member of parliament. And the whole idea is, if we learn to paint people for who they truly are, they'll be ashamed to come into public. But something else that actually gives these guys a lot of power is our inability to punish criminality.
Yeah, we are unable to.
So we glorify thieves. And the more you steal, the more powerful you become. There's been Jonah Lanamu has been in a series of title deals. And you can see the coalition between Ministry of Lands, Department of Directorate of Criminal Investigations, Judiciary, working with cartels. So you are a genuine landowner, and you have been robbed of your land. But when you go to the police, they take the side of the criminal, and you have all the evidence. It's
one of the things that is also very frustrating. And I think we have to, let's just say, the office of the citizen is the most powerful and most important seat. So media, in its best days, started this investigative journalism, and it was supposed to solve these kind of problems. You go out and find a company that is supposed to do this, cut tracks, for instance, doesn't put the cut tracks and whatnot. So you put it out, and
people
watch, and they're like, haha, this is very good entertainment. They cut very nice clips.
They make memes.
They trend, and then it's gone. And in my mind, I think there were those 10 years where the media attempted to play this role of public watchdog, ask questions to the people who are most powerful, both corporate and government. But the reaction of the public was, this is very good entertainment. This, as opposed to, this is a point for all of us to come together and rally and get some questions answered and write things. And I don't know if we've crossed over to this other side.
I think, and let me go back to that point of yours, because there are people who did Onsarigo, Namu, Moham, Okari, and Mwambia. So you spend months doing a story, and then it's aired, and within an hour, it's all jokes and memes, and guys making fun out of it. It even makes criminals laugh. They just laugh. The other day, I called a lady who had conned some orphans' money. She told me, don't worry, wepeleka Citizen, endo wekende kama ni billboard, endo kwa billboard mimi ni mwizi. Imagine the audacity of someone who calling someone says, go hire a billboard and put me on the billboard. Let them know that I'm a thief.
Yeah.
Because they know that in this country we reward thieves. I was thinking about how do we mitigate this? The people need to come together and decide, are we going to be an ethical, value based country? Are we going to have values as a country? Today, the exams started across the country, KCP exams, and they deployed 60,000 police officers.
Yeah, choppers and vehicles and all that.
But to guard children from stealing an exam.
Yeah.
And I think as a nation, we're very violent towards pettiness. So there's going to be like a class 8 child who's 14 or 13 years old, and there's an armed person in their classroom to stop them from stealing an exam. What kind of a country are we? No, you need to think about that. And on the other hand, there's a drug dealer, a land baron, a sexual trafficker, all manner of evil, with a police bodyguard to make sure they're never arrested or taken to court. So we'll send young kids to stop them from stealing exams and put fear in them. Well, the best officers in this country, the VIP protection, is protecting scammers in Kilimani. We are right now in Kilimani. This is in Kilimani. So gold scammers, wash people are in Kilimani. These are headquarters of Kilimani. And they work with police officers to do those deals. So what do we do as a country? Where do we go? So we want to give you the platform for Sema Ukweli. So this studio, actually, the way we have designed the studio, it has there's three formats. So you have Sema Ukweli, and you want to come and tell your story. So you're not going to have, I want to be here with you to tell your story. We're going to come and tell you, sit down and tell us what happened to you. And we'll help you maybe follow up with justice. We have a rapid response desk. We have a legal team just to get you to get justice if you can. The second one, which is which is a funny one, and it's called Anika Mutu. Anika Mutu now works very differently. Anika Mutu is about mtu alikugonga ni nini, unajua hata ukienda kotini utapata justice, but unaweza mwanika. So it's like a buyer beware. It's a cautionary tale, like Cliff Ofuko, the guy who conned me. So everyone in this kind knows Cliff Ofuko is a thief. I've put him everywhere. He's a thief. Cliff Ofuko is a thief. Meka ikila pale. Elinibia alikula pesa yangu 1 million ya borehole. Then you have a funny one. It's called Lipadeni.
How does that work?
Lipadeni is about some people who owe you money. You have documented evidence they owe you money. You borrowed money from them, or they borrowed you money, and they took the money and they never paid you, but they're out here perambulating with their money. So you come, there's a studio on the other side, there's a screen we show you. You put their photo on the screen, you talk about this person who robbed you and evidence how you paid them the money, then tunaweka kwa mtandao. So we're trying to use the shock factor and the shame factor to turn people into good citizens.
It's public shaming.
It's public shaming, basically.
Okay. and that's...
Nalipe madeni pia.
Yes. I mean, and that essentially should work, but it's... To go back to why that should work is Kenyans are now using social media because it's the place to centrally organize. Is the place where if people have problems, opportunities, that's where people go.
True.
Because every other thing in the society doesn't seem to hold itself. So social media is our place. There's KOT or KOX now is a big thing. I'll never get used to KOX. So KOT.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, Boni, as this sort of new platform that you're building comes through, the question is this, that, and you hear this all the time, but me, I'm not Boni. Me, I'm unable to show up and stand in front of cops, in front of people and say those things. How do you deal with people say, me, I'm not Boni?
So everyone has to be Awangari Maathai, Adedan Kimathi, Akotarela Samoi, Mekatililo Menza, Chelagat, Shikuku. We all have to be, because if you don't, think about it. So Ruto is the president, and he's going to be there maybe 5 years or 10 years, right?
Yes.
Look around the men and women around Ruto. And if you don't fix this country, they're going to be next in power. Then you realize you're a mess as a country. But if you're able to fix down here and punish people for what they do and their criminality, that means that the chance of us getting a value-based leader or someone who has leadership skills that are not conning or land grabbing are very, very high. So you have to become a Boni, or you have to become a freedom fighter in your own space,
right,
to avoid being taken advantage of. So there are countless of landlords in this Nairobi who overcharge rent and refuse the rent deposit. Let's expose them. There are countless of drivers who drive while they're drunk and cause accidents. Let's expose them. So let's expose and shame to fix our country, because we need to play a role in any way we can. So the discussion we're having today about this country and how it is would have been impossible 20, 30 years ago. Imagine us, small young people, running around mini media house. Somewhere in Kilimani would have been impossible. But other people came before us and paid the price for us to be able to even run on TV shows and have our own social media accounts and have freedom of speech. They paid the heavy price. So the price you're being asked to pay right now is so minimal. We're just saying, open your damn mouth and say the thing that you're supposed to say. And that's what we need to do as a country.
Okay. Let's complicate this a bit and introduce now a public problem. So these are individual problems.
Yes.
So someone has stolen from me, someone has taken something from me. Many times, and you see this on social media, that Kenyans can also be very individualistic. I walk around and someone's phone is stolen, and we'll just look on the sideline and look at the thief, even passing you, and like, that's not my problem. It's not my problem.
Business.
Yes, mind my own business. And you escalate this up to extrajudicial killing. You know, we're there, we see, you know, someone getting killed, we're just watching, and then we walk away. How do we sort of organize then into the public space and fix these public problems that are not individualistic in nature then?
So, documentation. If you can do something about it, document it. If you can remove your phone, record secretly, return it to the editor, open an anonymous account, send me the story, we can publish it. We need to document. One of the reasons why the Mau freedom fighters were able to take the British to court is that the British were stickler to paperwork. They were very meticulous in documenting what was happening. And so let's document. Governments change, leadership changes, people change. Let's document. So if you're in your community and you know the playground was originally a playground before it was grabbed, just document. Let people know what it was. There's been a lot of resistance in South B of a planned market or a planned construction in a public market. And people have been complaining, protesting about it. The government hasn't said anything about it, but it's the public going to court on their own behalf. So it is very, very possible for citizens to stop a land grabber or a thief in the community by doing that. So there's I think it's Maseno School of the Blind. Quick story. There are too many whispers in the studio. Maseno School of the Blind had a problem. Their school playground was being grabbed by an outsider. He came, said he has a title for the land, and he came all these other stories. So they called me to organize a protest. So I drove in, and the school is far from the road. And I came in, the land is in the community. And I said, you have a very simple problem. I said, if this land grabber comes and pours stones here, you steal the stones. Then you tell everyone in the community, if you come and help this man to build, we'll punish you. So basically, no one in that community, the land still belongs to the community. Because no one would provide security for that land. No one would say, I'm going to come and construct, and so on and so forth. The truth is, maybe now Ruto might know this. The truth is that when those kids came to reclaim back their playground, and there were tear gas and all that, the parents and people in the community said, if you're going to tear gas our kids so you can build a packet for your hotel, you're going to burn a hotel down. And that's straight up. And I'll give a quick story about Wangari Maathai. Wangari Maathai is known, Nobel Peace Prize, she smiled, planted trees. How did Wangari Maathai stop the grabbing of Karura Forest? So Wangari Maathai shows up at Karura Forest carrying trees to go plant with a battalion of activists. So she's carrying trees, they show up, goons show up with arrows and the police, and they brutalize Wangari Maathai and start chasing her around Karura Forest. So she couldn't plant trees. But there was a second team of students from Nairobi University who entered the Karura Forest through another route and went to the construction site where the trucks were, where they had a construction site, where they had the foreman site, where you pour your material, the trucks and everything. And they burnt everything down. There was no contractor in this country to take a job to go and build in Karura Forest. So
it became expensive.
It's very expensive. So community land, if you can ensure that whoever is going to grab let them know. Don't go directly. Just find a way to let him know. If you bring materials, we steal the material. If you come and try and build, we burn it down. It will put fear. Land grabbers will stay away because land grabbers actually don't want confrontations. You know, thieves want to live a long life because they're stealing. Unlike some of us who are willing to die because you're broke. So naambia mwizi hapa tutauana. Hapa tutauana. The freedom of this country was not a picnic. You know, as King Charles is coming here, the ancestors, the people who were sent here, small boys were sent from the colony, Uko from the British Empire. Tulichapa until the sun set on the British Empire. There is no longer an empire. It's a small country where they have fish and chips.
Okay, great. So the citizen journalism now as a solution to impunity and I think this and including the public discourse and for me personally I think the reason why I would say that we are in a good place as a country is two things. I think one, we have a citizenry that is aware in a very good way, that most people are aware about injustice. If you go to other countries, some of these things would pass as a non-issue. So in many ways, our level of awareness, that's a good thing, which informs what we do online. But I think then the going second step further is to make sure that we use our phones as tools. Yes, as tools. Yeah. And I think two things. I think to put in record, in public record, a lot of things that happen around us, on documenting it on video as citizens, citizen journalism is a huge thing. It will move us from the place where I think we are, where we are all sort of complaining and saying, well, this thing is not happening, or after the fact, we said, oh, call the media for a press conference. The thing is already done. It's done. Yeah. It's done. At the moment it's happening, whatever it is, I don't know many phones today that people walk around that cannot record even a photo, take a photo or a video.
So document. If you look at, so there's a genocide happening in Palestine. But the reason why there's a genocide happening, there's no Western journalists inside Gaza or the West Bank, but the citizens themselves are documenting their pain, their suffering, and what's happening to them. And our prayers, man, and thoughts go to the Palestinian people and the victims of Hamas attacks. So, the power of what we know right now is people sharing their stories as a first-hand account. Yes. So there's no broker between the information and the informed or the people being told the story. And I think there's so much power when you take your own phone and tell your own story in your own words. So one of the things that we need to do across this country, if you live in a county or in a ward or sublocation, tell a story about your locality. So imagine every single day on your way to work, there's a lady called Hani Safi on Twitter who is always tagging Sakaja about the pipeline. She's not giving up. No, I think by the end of the day, it's gonna get cleaned up because you have to be consistent, and she has been very consistent about it.
You think?
It's gonna get fixed. Yes, Sakaja says she's doing tendering. Okay. No, but I salute what she does.
All right. Okay.
She has been very consistent because let me tell you, when Kidero was governor, I shared a story about a roundabout for like 3 years, and eventually the roundabout was done. So Sakaja has been in office for 1 year. So the lady has like 2 or 3 years to go.
Yes. Until the pipeline is fixed.
And so that the memory of Sakaja and that pipeline sheet is like hand in hand. So it's very important that you just keep reminding people what they promised to do. And I like the way that when Ruto speaks, we remind them of their promises. When they speak, remind them of the promises. But we need to go beyond the president. We need to go and do that to the governors, and we need to do that for members of parliament. Senators have no job. Kazi. So I can't even say senators. So you say women reps so governors, members of parliament, MCAs in the ward, and the work they're supposed to do. And beyond that, imagine, for example, let's say Kamkunji police station is very notorious in this country for harassing people. But imagine if every single day for every person who is arrested, when they release, they say, I was arrested at Kamkunji, nikalipa bribe leo. And you do that every single day. Let me tell you, watakoma. Wakikula wanaanikwa. Wakikula wanaanikwa. Watakula. Cops don't eat my money. Asabango tatuanika.
But I mean, I like that concept, and I think just to move it forward, that we have to share our stories. I think I think someone said in court the other day, I forget his name, and said that sometimes we bring matters to court and it looks like it's a foregone conclusion. We are not going to win. And I said it's for the record purposes.
For the records. Yes. Right now courts are giving dates for mid next year.
Yeah.
for the first mention, not a hearing, mid next year. And it shows how broken our judiciary is. So it's not well funded, and then they're overstretched, and now we have more money for spouses of the president, the deputy president, and the Prime Minister Mudavadi than we have for the judiciary. So you find that a judge will have like in a day has 50 cases to hear. They cannot. We need to hire more. We need to go judges with the right technical team, because you go to court and a judge has to write everything someone says. There's no one taking notes. The judge has to come and listen to 30 matters, and because judges are humans like us and they go to golf clubs, they can be persuaded to delay a matter for a long time or to do a quick decision to favor a corrupt person. And I think 7 out of the 10 people working in the judiciary are corrupt. And hear me out. There haven't been any brave judge or magistrate convict someone powerful. And the one they did, which is an embarrassment in this country, it's called Wakulema Waluke. Waluke was convicted, went to jail and fined. He has appealed. So he found someone favorable to make him appeal and not be serving his sentence. And he was re-elected by the idiots of his county. Like the guys who went and convicted, and elected someone who was actually convicted for theft. And so even when we get a very brave judge who can send a rich man to jail, there's another judge in the same judiciary who's going to take money under the table to acquit a bad person.
So how do you contextualize and protect, I think, the judges? I spent a bit of time in the Magistrate Court. Yeah. And just look at the workings of what a magistrate has to do. She has to be in the office, this particular one had to be in the office by 6. And then she has to look at her roster, yes, a case list. Then she has to do submissions online, okay, to give new dates. And this time, there's people already waiting on her chambers to execute some matters. Then she has a whole courtroom that is full already by 7. So this takes another hour or 2 to complete these things. By 9, by the time she checks on the chambers, the courtroom is full. Some matters, either investigations have not been done properly, or the lawyers are figuring out how to work around the system. And there's someone who works 6 up to 9, 10. Then tomorrow repeat process. Someone's honest, yes, someone honest, someone working. So how do we, in the public mind, protect people like this who are working in an impossible circumstance or situation in a system, and then there's others who are not?
So we need to decriminalize petty offenses. When you go to any court, you'll find that drunk and disorderly, marijuana, dumping, touting, they're things that we give magistrates that should never be in court. So let's magistrates hear criminal matters. Those petty offenses should be removed from the book and find a ways of criminal offenders like those, or petty offenders rather, being taken to a place to go or fake a nyasi, or they do something that is clean, declog the things that can be handled by NYS.
Yeah. So we remove them from the judiciary.
From the judiciary, because even our jails are overstretched and full of petty offenders. That is number one. Number 2, we need to have special courts. So we need to have corruption cases courts, where when someone is arrested for corruption, the matter is you arraign in court. Within a week's time, the trial starts and should end within 6 months. Like there should be a time limit for how long can be in court. There's a guy called Samuel Gishuru and Chris Okemo. They were supposed to be extradited to Jersey.
Yes, the Jersey Islands.
The Jersey Islands, and the case has been caught. It was in court for about 12 years. Then they were eventually said they can't be taken to Jersey. Their accomplices were actually jailed in the other country. We have another story of Chicken Gate, where the people who bribed, they were called Chicken. They gave IBC officials money so they could get the election tender. And those guys were convicted in Britain and they served their time. Kenyan one went to jail. Yeah. And it's a joke. You spoke about Anglo-Leasing. So Anglo-Leasing, for those guys who don't know, was a passport and a forensics lab for the DCI. and the money was eaten by people who are known. They're actually billionaires today. And people were arrested and taken to court. The whistleblower, his name is John Githongo. He wrote a book called I'll Turn to It. And John Githongo is in court till to date because he was accused of libel, right? The people who stole the money and the money benefited them, and you can see where the money is in this country, are walking scot-free. The person who is in court being charged is the whistleblower.
Yeah. It's
heartbreaking. That reminds me of David Mwangi.
Yes.
He blew the whistle, was hounded, he died a bitter, dejected man. Kamlesh Patini, who he blew the whistle on, who was the one behind that scam, is now an international con. He's doing scams in Zimbabwe and working scot-free. And basically, that shows what kind of country we are. We are a country of crooks. Basically, Kenya is a country of criminals. And I can say this without a fear.
There's some good people, Bonnie, surely.
But this country is governed by criminals.
There's some good
That
people.
is why,
Yes.
before the elections, we were told, KEMSA thieves, all these thieves are going to get jailed. Or we were told by Rigathi, the coffers are looted dry, we're going to do a state capture commission. A year later, no state capture commission, no KEMSA thieves have been arrested. Every scam we were told by the Ruto and Rigathi, and they mentioned names. None of the people who are mentioned have been arrested. I even asked, I was in a meeting with Felix Koske, and I said, it used to tell us about all the time, Roraka land thief, Roraka land thief. Now you guys are in power. Do something about it, because the man who's in charge can call the shots. He's the commander-in-chief. Basically, he has the military,
Right.
he has the police, the intelligence, the DCI, like he has thousands and thousands, actually hundreds of thousands of troops under him. So if there is corruption in the last 10, 20 years that he knows about, that money was stolen, he can crack the whip. The question is, if he ain't a crook, why is he not cracking the whip? Because, you only keep a company of people that you like. So if you're not cracking the whip, are you saying that you're one of them? Because, bro, if you're not exposing and getting the thieves arrested, maybe hata umepigo yako ya kando.
Okay. So the final thing I think is the shareability of these stories. Right?
Very important. Very important.
Okay.
So if a tree falls in the forest and one hears, the tree never fell.
It's never happened, basically.
It never happened, bro.
Yes.
So if we do a story and you don't share, man, we never did the story. So it's very, very important that beyond watching a story, if you don't have the courage to mouth the problem or say it, please have the courage to share a story. Even if it's a WhatsApp link you send to your friends and family, share the story. And not even Sema Ukweli story, by the way. I think the media does a very important story. I'm a big fan of The Nation, man. And they did a story the other day, a week ago, about Charles Ngetich. Charles Ngetich is this land official who is very corrupt. I didn't even have a face for him, but I've done stories about the guy.
Yeah.
And Nation went behind the scenes and did a story about him. And it has done so many other stories. There are people who write very well for The Nation, and people do very good story for NTV. And other medias, actually, media houses, actually. And Namu does an excellent job as well. Every story that is done by the media takes a lot of courage for a media personality not to take a bribe and they're paid poorly and just go ahead and do the story. And the least you can do is share the story. So every time you come across a good story, it doesn't matter the media house or it is, if it's a good story from a trusted source, please share it. Because by you sharing it is actually, it's a form of action by letting other people know I saw this story and I think you should actually know about it as well.
So, you said something that's important, that I think half of the time we don't take into account how much time it takes people to bring these kind of stories to a public consumption, that we know there's a whole land scam happening, there's a whole land grabbing happening here, there's theft in this hospital, in that public institutions. It takes a lot of time and courage
and
for sacrifice someone to put their name and keep on following and whatnot. It becomes disheartening if
the story is not watched.
The story is not watched, or people are not, engaging with that story the way the person who thought this is a thing that the public should know, in essence, should. And I think the issue with that is, again, I think like as Kenyans, is we should try as much as possible to remove this fear thing. The fear of oh, you know, I cannot be associated with this, or if I retweet, then they will say, oh, you know, I am part of this thing or that sort of thing.
Retweets are not endorsements.
Yes, retweet. Yeah, sorry, I just retweeted, and I think those things are important because these stories for the younger generation. You know, I saw the other day how our age distribution of this country. So most of our population is 20 and below.
Yes.
You know, so genuinely, this country should be fixed.
By the young.
Yes, by the young. The guys past 40.
You guys are done.
Yes. Unfortunately, there's not much we can do. But yes. But to be honest, I think this is where I think the power of social media, to combine those two things, social media and action and organizing, sort of come together and find a new place where people can say this is not my country, or this is the country I'd like to live into. Okay, so this is what's happening now, acknowledge, but this is the country I'd like to live into.
True. And guess who has no fear, no shame? Criminals. They have no fear, no shame. They'll rob you, buy the biggest car, and drive around and show it off. They'll tell you the country is broke, and buy new cars and give more money to their wives. And they let us know.
This is what I've done.
Kama mkora hana aibu unasikia aibu kwa nini nauna kitu? No, you know, let me tell you. One of the things about life is that we're all going to die. The man with the most and the man with the least. And imagine dying and going to your next life and realize it was a waste of fear because you feared nothing. And there's nothing to fear. And maybe by you fearing, you live to be 90 or like Methuselah. You live forever and left zero impact.
Yes.
And by living forever, you
lived 800 years or 900 years.
Yeah, 800 years. And not saying, oh, Methuselah lived and had kids. Yeah. That's a waste of life. That your only legacy is just having kids. Your legacy is you must leave this world a better place. There's Martin Luther, the reformer, said, the one who wrote the 96 Thesis, he said that you should plant an apple tree whose shade you won't enjoy, or plant a tree whose shade you won't enjoy. And the whole idea about fighting for a better country or a less thuggish nation is that even if you don't enjoy that change, whoever comes after you will enjoy it. Yeah. So for me, Cliff Ofuko actually is a good example. By exposing Cliff Ofuko, it has meant that no other person that Cliff can con. Because when you Google Cliff Ofuko, you see all my tweets and all my posts about him. And guess what? His kids know that he's a thief. His wife knows that he's a thief. The people in his court know that he's a thief. So me, I've played my role in society. There's one less thief to con you in this society. Now imagine the guys who are doing maybe gold scammers. Imagine if you people in the media stopped calling them flamboyant business people. Because the problem is you guys don't call them gold scammers and thieves. You use flamboyant businessman, eccentric businessman. There's a guy called Paul Kobia. No, namutanga eccentric. Hakuna sikiza. Mwizi ni mwizi. Mwizi ni mwizi. Wewe tunanga mtu mwizi wa kuku mwizi. We need to find ways to just describe someone. Even if you can't call it, because the way you call flamboyant controversial, that's how you guys call thieves. Is there another way that you can call them without getting sued? Because the other thing is about litigation. You don't want to be like me, fighting court cases every other week. I'm in court on Wednesday again.
So finally, but tell me, I mean, people contact you every so often about their issues. And of course, you can see the trend. That what is, if you were to categorize and say the big three things that are happening in our society today, based on what people are telling you about, you know, what's happening to them, this person is stealing from me, this is what's happening to me through government, whatever it is. What are those sort of like three big things that are happening in the society today?
So, excuse me. I think number one is police brutality, extortion. There's just police officers out here just extorting. And if you don't give in, they brutalize you. And then the second one is land. A lot of land scams and land deals going bad. Guys getting conned, and then you have a corrupt judiciary where just people corrupt the system, and you find that you have a matter that goes on for ages, for years and years. I think it's very important for families to have wills, because one of the other things that you get a lot here is inheritance cases, where when someone dies intestate and there's a conflict or fight over the inheritance. So I think as a man or a woman, whoever you are, write a will. If you have one family or two families, find a way to include them or let people know who your people are, because there's so much fight and so much pain out here. And also medical negligence. Now the challenge of medical negligence in this country, I think there's only one person who is a lawyer doctor. So medical negligence, to prove it becomes very hard, because doctors side with doctors.
All the time.
And as a layman,
Yeah.
you give me a prescription and tell me this happened to me, I can't tell you from head from tail. But basically what all this encapsulates is the failure of our institutions. They don't do their job. There's a Kenya Medical Board, there's so many, every institution, or rather every industry has an institution actually that oversees it, but there's failure of that. And also the other complaints about leaders who don't pay their bills. People who go and have sex with prostitutes, they don't pay. People come to me and tell me, "Dai pesa yangu," naambia kidogo bado ngumu. So there's a lot of those people not paying their bills. So a contractor, I think we're a very, very dishonest country. Moralistic, we're very high on morals, because we decide how people do behave in their lifestyles. But sincerely speaking, we're a very dishonest nation. I'm serious. Like the level of dishonesty in this country is shocking. People get conned by their own parents. Like if you look at dishonesty, most of the cases are family cases. It's brother against brother, mother against father. It's just families who can agree. And I think because we're a greedy country.
So how do we fix that finally? Especially the land. Just take me the land one.
The land
because land is a big one. I mean, the last month or so, we've seen consequences.
Stop buying land anyhow. Listen, buying a land is not like buying lunch or a sex toy. Take your time. It's not going anywhere. Land don't be put in your pocket. Don't take your time. No, you know, sex toy is like, I have a need, I want to buy a sex toy, or I want to buy maize, or I want to buy lunch, I want to buy a shirt that I can wear immediately. Take your time in land. If possible, and actually not if possible, always involve a lawyer. So
always involve a lawyer.
Always involve a lawyer. If you want to buy land from someone, let them send you the title. Do a land search. If in doubt, ask for a search of the green card. Get a copy of the green card. Pay 10 or 20% before you get the land, as they go through the legalities. Let them obtain a consent, transfer the land. And you can also put your money in the lawyer's account until the land is transferred to you for them to be paid their money. Don't be in a hurry to buy land. Because this country, land barons are very powerful. They con you so much money, and then they go and own the police station where you're going to report. So when you go there, they just laugh at you. Oh, any mwingine, hey, mko wengi, take a number. I don't think there's any land grabber in jail for stealing land. Hakuna?
Good.
So the show is Sema Ukweli. Our number is 0758-199-199. The number is there. Google us, Sema Ukweli. And we would like you to own this show. This is your chair. We just sit warmers here. And thank you, James, for coming.
Thank you for having me.
James has a show on NTV every Tuesday.
With all due respect.
With all due respect.
Yes.
And he's my man.
The boy
from Korogocho.
Yes.
Uni boy wa gate.
Thank you for having me, Boni.
Thank you.
Yes.